Alright guys, welcome to my daily driver. This is a Volvo 440 and it has a GoPro mount, so I could mount a proper recorder this time, audio recorder, in a proper position, so it's not in front of my gear knob for a change. It is quite shaky though, so I hope you don't hear that in the recording. We will only know when it's too late. I have bought this car almost 4 years ago now and have done almost 100,000 kilometers by now, which is about 60,000 miles, and so far I have only had to replace a starter motor and let me think, oh yeah, recently actually, a few weeks ago I had to replace one of the seals for a drive axle because it was leaky. That's all. It had normal maintenance. Obviously things have been replaced like brake pads, tires, spark plug wire, stuff like that. But other than that, it's been dead reliable. It only stopped working once when the little nut that holds the clutch cable came loose apparently and had readjusted itself. So my clutch wasn't working anymore. That was all. I could have fixed it right there at the side of the road had I had a tiny little nut. So I had to call road services and it was like a 15-second fix. I bought this car with under 100,000 kilometers. And it's now at 186,696. First owner car, dealer maintained, and it shows. It's just been absolutely perfect. Not all dealers are great, but generally Volvo dealers know what they are doing. That said, when I bought this car, it was 17 years old. You don't usually buy a 17-year-old car for 750 euros with a complete dealer history. So I got lucky this time, and it's proven to be a really good car. Also a really pleasant car to drive. I know people will call it boring and everyone will say like, oh, my uncle had one and my grandfather had one, but there's a good reason everyone had this car back in the day, at least where I live. It's light, it's relatively economical, it's comfortable for a relatively light car, and you can drive it to, I don't know, say south of Italy without getting tired. I drove this car to Geneva, for instance, in one day. And I got out and I didn't feel like I was completely done driving. I was still feeling quite fresh. I was obviously tired, but I didn't feel like my back was hurting or anything else. It had been a comfortable, smooth journey. And that's really what this car does. It's not standing out in any way. It's just doing everything very much good enough. Steering is fine, the brakes are fine. It always seats 4 people in just a little bit more comfort than you'd expect. It always takes more crap than you expect. It's an insanely good, pleasant car. And though it may not be my favorite car in terms of driving, it's definitely my favorite car in terms of ownership, both because of reliability and because it's just always that little bit better than you remember from the day before. This car was built, or should I say born, in Born, a little town in the south of the Netherlands, about 10 miles away from here. It was built probably in late 1996 and put on the road in January of 97, which makes it a very late Volvo 440. They were pretty much built until December 1996. It's got the 1.6 injection engine from the Renault Megane, sort of, which is, according to everyone, too slow for this car, but I drove it on the German Autobahn last week without any issues. It was quick enough to whatever speed I wanted to drive. I think I topped at 160 at some point. It's got 83 horsepower and it takes it to 60 miles an hour or 100 kilometers an hour in just under 12.5 seconds. Which by my standards is quick enough. I will give it the beans later, but for now I'm just cruising the countryside as I do in these videos. I'm sorry for the blower noises you hear coming from the dashboard. I had to close the window because, hey, there's actually a 440 driving there. Ha! With a trailer. See, everyone still uses them. I'm sorry for the blower noises coming from the dashboard. I actually had to close the window because I'm driving up to speed every now and then and it's a bit noisy. The microphone was also picking up the wind from these air vents, so I'm only using this air vent now. It's quite warm, but you know, a man's got to do what a man's got to do, I guess. And I have to review this car. In terms of driving, I would call this car balanced. It's comfortable but not overly wallowy, as you can see here. These are still the original shock absorbers, but they're doing a fine job so far. Steering is light but not too light. There's quite a lot of feel to it, even for an old-fashioned power steering system. As for options, that is one of the 2 options this car has: power steering and central locking. And that's literally all. I mean, it has a cigarette lighter and you can fold the rear seats down in 2 parts, but that is actually all. It's a very basic model and I like it that way. Okay, maybe electric mirrors would have been cool, because then I can reach that mirror, which I can never reach, obviously, unless I go like this. And sometimes an electric right window would have been cool, but that gives you an electric left window as well, which is just more stuff to go wrong. I really don't care for this kind of thing. I use this car daily, and I use it a lot, and I use it quite intensively. I pull caravans with it, I pull trailers with it, I haul stuff with it, I take road trips, I take travels, everything. It's just being maintained reasonably well, not perfectly well. It's an old car. You could overdo it easily, but it's maintained reasonably well. It's getting a full service every 25,000 kilometers, and I keep a close eye on oil and coolant and stuff like that. Also, I make sure it's on decent tires. Right now it's on 2 Vredestein tires and on 2 Michelin tires. And I used to always like Michelin best, but at some point I didn't really have money for them. And I needed good tires, so I bought Vredestein, which were recommended to me. And I think I like them better, actually. At first I had the Vredesteins on the back, because that's the tires I wanted to replace, and the Michelins on front. It was horrible. The car wanted to do everything except go straight. And then I swapped them around, and now it's better than it's ever been. So I'll be switching to Vredestein all around, I think next year. I'm not sure how long I'll still have this car. It's been perfect so far, but obviously if any big repair needs to happen to it, well, I'm not going to do that, because it's not worth it. But so far it's been doing great, and I hope to at least get to 200,000 kilometers on the clock, and at least another year, because I wouldn't mind getting another car, because I like getting cars, but I'm not bored with this car. I'm not fed up with it in any way. I did quite a lot of work to it cosmetically. It's got some rust issues that I still need to attend, but it's got a new interior because it was completely falling apart. And as I just told you, I polish it every now and then so it looks the part. Here's a little acceleration test, going from 50 kilometers an hour flat to the floor. And that's 90. That's not slow. Why would anyone say this is slow? It's definitely adequate, if not more. So this car to me makes perfect sense. Part of this car is Renault, actually most of this car is Renault. The drivetrain's Renault, the engine's Renault, the gearbox is Renault. It's pretty much a big Renault 19 with a modernish engine and Volvo written on it. It feels more sturdy than a Renault 19, except for the dashboard, which, as you may be able to see, is jumping around a bit. It's very obvious that this was made with cheaper materials than the first Volvo 440s. But then, by this time, the model was 10 years old. What can you expect? As for road holding, it's not too bad. It's understeered a bit, but not that much actually for a front-wheel drive car from this era, because in the end it is an 80s car, even though it was released, this one, in 1997. It doesn't really feel like a car you want to push, but I haven't really found its limits yet, to be honest. I'm actually surprised by how well it corners. It doesn't roll too much for a car of this age. It actually feels quite planted, and that's surprising, because it's not the kind of car you expect performance from. But it's balanced. Again, it's a very balanced car, even when it comes to road holding. And I think they did a good job making this chassis. It's as I said, it's comfortable. It's not wallowy. It corners quite well, even though it's by no means an old Mini, if you know what I mean. It doesn't go through corners like square, but it's definitely okay. I don't mind cornering like that. It's all right. I just don't want to ruin my tires. It doesn't fight or anything. There's no torque steer. I think this may be an underrated chassis, actually. I think people should have given this more credit than it gets. Top Gear's review of this car was, no car has the right to be this dull. But I'd like to call it comfortable. It's not Toyota dull, if you know what I mean. It has some character, it has some spirit, it has a nice interior, it has brilliant seats. They are really good. There's a lot of things about this car that show you that someone cared about designing it. And that's not always the case with Japanese cars. Or with Volkswagens, for that matter. Everyone that drives it, no matter their prejudices, goes, well, actually, it's a pleasant car. It's a pleasant place to be, and that's what I think too. I also think this is a perfect starter's car. It's quite economical, it's quite light, it's very safe for a small car. It is, in the end, a Volvo, let's not forget about that. Even though it's pretty much a Renault, it's still up to Volvo safety standards. It's a follow-up of the Volvo 340, which is a follow-up of the Volvo 343, which were also both born in Born. Later on, the S40 was built in Born. I think the new Mini now is built there. Mitsubishi Charisma, Mitsubishi Colt, BMW 1 Series, I think they're all made in Born. It's kind of cool to think that this car is now so close to its roots, even closer than with the previous owner, because the guy I bought it from actually lived about 100 kilometers away from here. It was worth the drive, as it turned out. I was a bit hesitant to buy it because the advertisement was spelled really badly and it was in a really bad neighborhood, but the people turned out to be friendly and honest, and they sold me a really good car, although there's some damage on that side, the right side, and they didn't show it on the pictures, and they parked it against a bush. So I don't think they wanted me to see it. But I had already test driven it, and that's actually what they said. They were like, if you drive it, you will want it. And they were spot on, because the car drove perfectly. Somehow when you buy a car, you know that it's a right car, but somehow when you don't have that feeling, you will still buy it because you can't really put your finger on it. With this car, I just knew it was a good one. And my dad was sitting next to me when he had test drove it, and he was looking at me going like, you may want to get this one. Because we just felt that it was spot on, that it was a really well-maintained car. Here's some serious bumping for you. Let me show you some body roll, just for fun. There you go, it's not too bad for an old car. Can do a little brake test if you want to. Who needs ABS? That really was my phone falling on the floor though. That was not great. Who needs ABS anyway? You've got your foot for that. Just, you know, get a little feel for your brakes. The car also has no safety features, no ABS, no airbags. I do have a horn here to warn other people. It's a bit sad, to be honest, but it works. And no traction control or anything. It's just a very basic car. It's got injection, it's got an electronic ignition, and that's it really. That's all there is to it. Not too much computer stuff going on. It's got a little computer, but nothing fancy. So it works. It actually works. And I don't think I'll ever have a car quite as good as this one anymore. So if you can get one of these, and it's not too rusty, mind the rear wheel arches, get it, because it can suit you a long time. Don't get... Something's on fire here, by the way. Do you see that? What on earth is going on? Woohoo, smells good. Do get the later model with the injection engines. The older ones are really nice as well, but they are very uneconomical, and they have a problem with the seating of the carburetor getting too hot and bending, and then you have to flatten it again and put a new seal in, and it's fixable. You know, if you find one that keeps shutting off, that's the problem, probably. When it heats up, like the car, after like 10 minutes of driving and it keeps shutting off, that's your problem. Other than that, they're quite good. But I would recommend this model because it's slightly quicker, it's definitely more economical, and it's easier to find. Also with the new nose, with the facelift nose, it looks a bit more modern. Contemporary is the word. And I actually like it this way. It's a bit like an 850. They do call it the baby 850 for a reason, I guess. So that was my comprehensive review of the Volvo 440. I didn't really plan to do this. I just figured I would drive my car to dry it off, and then I was like, what the heck, I may as well mount the camera and make a little review of this car, as I hadn't yet, despite this being my car for so long. So yeah, who knows how long I may still have it. Maybe another year, maybe 2 years, maybe it will be dead next week. You never know, but so far it's been brilliant, and whatever happens to it now, it's got my seal of approval. Well done, little Volvo. I'm not sure what I'm going to replace you with. It's not going to be as good, I'm afraid. Ah well.